The Tribunal of Elders on planet Valix had never before issued such a sentence. Banishment to the primitive world of Earth was reserved for the most hardened criminals, not for two young females whose only crime was questioning the rigid hierarchical structure of their society. Lyra stood tall, her azure skin shimmering under the harsh lights of the judgment chamber. At her side, Tala kept her gaze fixed on the polished floor, her violet complexion darkening with anger. Both wore the simple white tunics of the accused, their wrists bound by energy cuffs that neutralized their natural telepathic abilities. For the crime of sedition and spreading dissent among the youth caste, intoned Elder Crone, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. You are hereby sentenced to exile on Earth for one full cycle of their sun. If you survive and demonstrate rehabilitation, you may petition for return. Lyra wanted to protest. Their crime had been organizing study groups discussing alternative social structures, hardly the revolution the elders feared. But protest would only extend their sentence. The transport ship was small and uncomfortable, piloted remotely. As Valix shrank to a distant point of light behind them, Tala finally spoke. I don't regret it, she whispered. Even now. Lyra reached across the narrow space between their seats, her three-fingered hand finding Tala's. Neither do I. Their ship was programmed to crash in a remote area. Survival was part of the punishment. The Valixians believed that struggling on a backward planet would teach humility to the exiled. As Earth's atmosphere engulfed them in flame, Lyra studied the emergency data scrolling across the screen. We need to blend in, she said, activating the DNA modifier. It would temporarily alter their appearance to match the dominant species. The process was painful but necessary. Their natural forms would cause panic among humans. The ship crashed in a forest somewhere in the northern hemisphere. Emergency protocols deployed, softening their landing but irreparably damaging the craft. As designed, it would disintegrate within hours, leaving them stranded with only the basics. Translator implants, minimal survival gear, and falsified identification documents. Lyra emerged first, gasping at the sensation of Earth's atmosphere filling her newly modified lungs. Her skin now appeared pale pink instead of azure, her third eye and sensory tentacles hidden. She looked down at her five-fingered hands in wonder. It worked, she breathed, turning to help Tala from the wreckage. Tala stumbled out, her appearance similarly transformed. Everything feels muted, she said, touching her face. I can't sense anything beyond physical perception. They watched as the ship began to break down, molecules separating into harmless elements that would fertilize the surrounding vegetation. By sundown, no evidence of their alien arrival would remain. According to the data, Lyra said, consulting, their survival pack. There's a human settlement 10 kilometers in that direction. She pointed through the trees. We have currency and identification. We're supposed to get jobs and housing. Tala laughed bitterly. Just like that? Become human? We have no choice, Lyra replied, shouldering her pack. 1 Earth year. We survive, we go home. As they walked through the alien forest, Earth's single moon rose above them, casting silver light through the trees. Neither mentioned what both were thinking, that the study groups they'd organized had focused extensively on Earth cultures, particularly their evolving concepts of freedom and individual choice, concepts forbidden on Valix. Maybe, Tala said softly, this punishment is actually an opportunity. Lyra glanced at her companion, seeing determination replace fear in her now human eyes. Maybe you're right, she replied. This might be exactly where we need to be. The town of Pine Ridge barely registered on maps, which made it perfect for 2 aliens trying to maintain a low profile. Their forged documents identified them as distant cousins, Lyra and Tala Marsh, who had moved after a family tragedy. The modest savings provided in their exile packets rented them a small 2-bedroom apartment above the local bookshop. What do humans do all day? Tala wondered aloud, staring out their window at the small town activity below. 1 week had passed since their arrival, and they'd ventured out only for necessities. Work, mostly, Lyra replied, studying the local newspaper's job listings. Their translator implants made language no barrier, but cultural nuances remained confusing. We need employment, or our funds won't last 3 lunar cycles. The bookshop below their apartment had a help wanted sign. The owner, an elderly woman named Maggie, squinted suspiciously when they applied, but needed the help too desperately to ask many questions. "You girls aren't from around here," she noted, handing them each an apron. It wasn't a question. "We're from far away," Lyra answered carefully. "Very far." Maggie just nodded. "Everyone's running from something. Just don't bring trouble to my shop." Working among books suited them. On Valix, information was strictly controlled, but here, ideas flowed, freely across pages accessible to anyone. Lyra found herself lingering after hours, devouring history books, while Tala gravitated toward fiction, particularly romance novels that described emotional connections forbidden on their homeworld. "They feel so much," Tala whispered one night, curled on their second-hand sofa. "Everything is intense for them. Joy, pain, love. No wonder the elders fear human influence." Summer turned to autumn, and Pine Ridge transformed. The surrounding forest blazed with colors that made both aliens gasp. They'd witnessed the changing seasons through study materials, but experiencing it, the crisp air, the earthy scent of fallen leaves, was overwhelming. They began establishing routines that felt almost normal. Morning shifts at the bookshop, afternoon explorations of their new world. They discovered coffee at the local diner, where the waitress, Ruby, always gave them extra whipped cream on their hot chocolate and called them her girls with casual affection. At night, they'd walk by the small lake at the edge of town, marveling at how the water reflected stars arranged in patterns unfamiliar to them. "I miss home sometimes," Tala admitted one evening, skipping stones across the water's surface, a human activity she'd perfected. "But not as much as I thought I would." Lyra nodded. Their human forms had begun feeling less like disguises and more like comfortable clothes. She'd caught herself humming along to Earth music, laughing at human jokes that weeks ago would have puzzled her. "Do you think," Lyra asked hesitantly, "that we're becoming too human?" The question hung between them. On Valix, assimilation with lesser species was considered corruption of the highest order. But here, under Earth's wide sky, such rigid thinking seemed increasingly distant. "Maybe that's the point," Tala replied. "Maybe that's what the elders really fear, that we'll see there are other ways to live." Their apartment gradually accumulated small treasures. A potted plant that Tala nurtured with surprising dedication, books that Maggie let them keep from damaged inventory, a colorful quilt Ruby's grandmother made when she learned their apartment was poorly heated. What they didn't discuss was how their customary evening embrace, a Valixian gesture of solidarity between friends, had begun lasting longer each night. How Tala's hand sometimes lingered on Lyra's when passing a book. How Lyra found herself watching Tala more often, noting how Earth's sunlight caught in her now human hair. Their DNA modifications were only skin deep. Inside, they remained Valixian. But something was changing between them. Something that had no name on their homeworld, but featured prominently in the romance novels that Tala couldn't stop reading. The first snow of winter transformed Pine Ridge into a wonderland that left both aliens speechless. Lyra extended her hand into the swirling flakes, watching them melt against her skin with childlike fascination. "It's like frozen starlight," she whispered, turning to Tala with eyes wide in wonder. They stood on the walkway outside their apartment while the town slept under a deepening white blanket. The silence was profound, broken only by their breathing and the soft patter of snowflakes. "I've read about this," Tala said, tilting her face upward. But experiencing it, she couldn't finish her sentence. Their first Earth Christmas approached, bringing customs that bewildered and delighted them. Maggie closed the bookshop early each day as December progressed, insisting they join in decorating a large pine tree she'd hauled into the store. "Family tradition," she explained gruffly, handing them each a box of ornaments. 30 years, never missed a Christmas. "We don't really celebrate," Lyra began, but Tala elbowed her. "We'd be honored to help," Tala finished, already reaching for a glittering star. They learned about gift-giving, about carols and eggnog, about the human tendency to find light in the darkest season. Ruby invited them to her family's Christmas dinner, where her boisterous relatives asked too many questions about their past, but accepted vague answers with good-natured shrugs. Found family. Ruby's mother explained, refilling their plates. Sometimes the family you make matters more than the one you're born into. The concept resonated with both exiles in ways they couldn't express. By January, they'd settled into a comfortable rhythm with the town and its people. Their alien origins seemed increasingly distant, like a half-remembered dream. But their sentence was only half complete, and reality intruded one bitter cold night when Lyra woke, gasping, her human form momentarily slipping to reveal blue skin beneath. "The modifications are weakening," she told Tala, panic rising. "We'll need to reinforce them." Their emergency kit contained 3 booster injections for such situations. It should have been enough, but the Earth environment was affecting them differently than expected. Their bodies were adapting too well, creating resistance to the modifications. "We only have 3 between us," Tala said, staring at the injections. 6 months left in our sentence. The unspoken question hung between them. What happens when we run out? They rationed carefully, using only half a dose each. The modifications stabilized, but for how long, neither could predict. Their predicament drew them closer, creating an intimacy born of shared secrets and mutual dependence. One night, trapped inside during a blizzard, power cut to their building, they huddled under every blanket they owned. Human bodies, they'd discovered, were terribly inefficient at temperature regulation. "On Valix," Tala murmured, "we never touched like this." It was true. Physical contact on their homeworld was ritualized, minimal. Here in human form, they'd grown accustomed to casual touches. A hand on a shoulder, arms linked while walking, hugs that Ruby insisted upon whenever they helped her carry heavy trays at the diner. "There's so much we never did on Valix," Lyra replied softly. In the darkness, she could just make out Tala's profile, now so familiar in its human configuration, yet still fundamentally Tala. Something shifted between them that night, something neither had words for, but both recognized. When Tala's fingers intertwined with hers beneath the blankets, Lyra didn't pull away. Instead, she drew closer, their foreheads touching in the cold darkness. "If we were human," Tala whispered, "what would we be to each other now?" Lyra thought of the books Tala read, the stories of human connection and longing. "I think," she said carefully, "we might be falling in love." The word, so human, so foreign to their native culture, hung in the air between them. On Valix, partnerships were strategic arrangements, reproductive necessities devoid of emotional attachment. What they were feeling had no place in their world, but they weren't on Valix anymore. Spring came to Pine Ridge in a riot of color and scent that overwhelmed their enhanced senses. Earth was revealing itself as a planet of extremes. Frozen silence, giving way to explosive growth and renewal. Their doses of the DNA modifier were running dangerously low. 1 full injection remained, and their human appearances occasionally flickered when they were tired or emotional. They'd taken to wearing long sleeves and high collars, explaining away the occasional glimpses of blue or violet skin as a rare condition. The townspeople, in their remarkable human way, accepted this with minimal questioning. Humans, they'd learned, preferred comfortable explanations over disturbing truths. "We have a decision to make," Lyra said one April morning as they walked through the woods behind town. Cherry blossoms floated around them like pink snow. "Our transport beacon activates in 3 months. We could split the last dose, maybe stretch it that long." Tala stopped walking, her expression troubled. "And if we can't?" The question contained multitudes. If they couldn't maintain their human forms, they'd be discovered. Best case, panic and chaos. Worst case, government intervention, imprisonment, experimentation. "There's another option," Lyra said carefully. "We don't have to go back." The words were treasonous by Valixian law. Abandoning their homeworld, choosing exile permanently, it was unthinkable. Tala's hand found hers, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. "I've been thinking the same thing," she confessed. "But without the modifier, how would we survive here?" It was the practical question hiding the emotional one neither dared ask. What was Valix to them now, after experiencing Earth? After experiencing each other in ways their society had never allowed? Their relationship had deepened over the winter months into something that still left them breathless with its intensity. Human bodies experienced emotions differently, more immediately, more physically. When they kissed, stars seemed to explode behind Lyra's eyelids. When they held each other at night, Tala swore she could feel both her hearts beating in sync with Lyra's. The elders were right to fear Earth, Lyra murmured, watching a hummingbird dart between flowers. Just not for the reasons they thought. Their conversations increasingly centered around futures neither had imagined before. Staying in Pine Ridge, finding a way to stabilize their human forms, building a life together among these strange, wonderful creatures who valued freedom and individual choice above collective stability. That evening, as sunset painted their apartment in gold, Maggie knocked on their door for the first time since they'd moved in. Her expression was uncharacteristically serious. "Girls," she said without preamble, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." She placed a book on their coffee table, a worn astronomy text, open to a page showing Valex's distant solar system. A chill ran through both of them. "I've been around longer than you might think," Maggie continued calmly, "and Pine Ridge has had visitors before, not many, but enough that some of us know what to look for." Tala stepped forward protectively, but Maggie raised a weathered hand. "You're not the first to choose to stay," she said simply. "And if that's what you're considering, there are people who can help." As the elderly bookseller explained, Pine Ridge had a secret history stretching back decades. A small community of extraterrestrial refugees and their human allies, helping those who sought sanctuary on Earth. "The universe is vast," Maggie said, "but kindness should be universal. Whatever you decide, you're not alone." When she left, Lyra and Tala sat in stunned silence, possibilities expanding before them like the night sky. Their sentence had become a doorway to something neither could have imagined when they left Valex. "We could stay," Tala whispered, the hope in her voice both terrifying and exhilarating. "We could really stay." The revelation that Pine Ridge harbored other extraterrestrial refugees changed everything. Maggie introduced them to Dr. Allen, a human physician who specialized in alien biology, a specialty he'd developed through decades of secret work with visitors, as he called them. "Your DNA modifier is Valixian standard issue," he explained, examining the depleted injections in his basement laboratory. His home, a Victorian farmhouse on the outskirts of town, concealed sophisticated equipment behind false walls and hidden panels. Effective but crude. "We can do better." "Better how?" Lyra asked, unable to hide her skepticism. Earth technology seemed hopelessly primitive compared to Valex. Dr. Allen smiled. "With a little help from friends who came before you, we've developed stabilizers that integrate your natural biology with human characteristics. No more injections, no more flickering. The procedure would be permanent. Their bodies would remain outwardly human while maintaining their Valixian internal structures. They would neither be fully human nor fully Valixian anymore. You'd be something new," Dr. Allen said. "A bridge between worlds." They requested time to consider, though both knew which way they were leaning. Their scheduled return to Valex was only weeks away, but the thought of leaving Earth, leaving what they'd discovered together, grew more painful by the day. On a warm June evening, they sat by the lake where they'd spent countless hours contemplating their place on this strange, beautiful planet. Fireflies danced above the water, mimicking the stars that would soon appear. "I used to dream of going home," Tala admitted, trailing her fingers through the cool water. "Now I'm not sure where home is anymore." Lyra understood completely. Valex represented certainty, their species, their heritage, the structured society that had shaped them. Earth offered something less defined but infinitely more compelling, freedom to become themselves fully, to love without boundaries. "The elders wanted to punish us," Lyra said, watching the first stars appear. "But they gave us a gift instead." Their decision crystallized in that moment, beneath an Earth sky that had become more familiar than the constellations of their birth. They would stay. They would accept Dr. Allen's procedure. They would build their home here, among humans who had shown them more acceptance than their own kind ever had. The procedure took place during the new moon, when darkness would hide any unusual lights from Dr. Allen's equipment. Ruby was there, revealing herself as Dr. Allen's daughter and assistant. Maggie brought food and moral support, her gruff exterior softening as she held their hands through preliminary tests. "Your people really don't do the whole emotional attachment thing, do they?" Ruby asked as she prepared the stabilizing compounds. Tala shook her head. "Emotions are considered inefficient, distracting from the collective good." "Well," Ruby replied with a grin, "they're missing out on the best part of being alive." The process was uncomfortable, but not painful. As the stabilizers integrated with their systems, both experienced flashes of memory. Valex's crystalline, cities, their first glimpse of Earth through the transport ship's viewports. The moment they realized their punishment had become their salvation. When it was complete, they looked outwardly the same as they had for months in their human forms. But internally, the change was profound. They could feel both aspects of themselves, Valixian and human, existing in perfect balance. Most surprisingly, a faint telepathic connection had been restored between them, though it worked with no one else. Their private thoughts remained their own, but emotions and impressions flowed between them like a gentle current. "A side effect of the stabilization," Dr. Allen explained, fascinated. "Your Valixian telepathic capacities have adapted, becoming more selective and intimate. It's remarkable." As they walked home beneath the stars, their newfound connection humming between them, both felt the weight of their choice alongside its liberating potential. They would never see Valix again. Their names would be struck from clan records, their existence denied. But in exchange, they had found something their society had never valued. They had found love, in all its messy, beautiful, human complexity. "No regrets?" Lyra asked, though she could feel the answer through their bond. Tala's response was to pull her close, kissing her beneath the alien sky that had become their own. No words were necessary. The summer solstice arrived, marking one full Earth year since their crash landing. Somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of Valix, their files would be updated to reflect their failure to return. Permanent exile, names redacted from history. "Happy Earth anniversary," Tala said, presenting Lyra with a small wrapped package at breakfast. Inside was a silver pendant, 2 intertwined spirals surrounding a small blue stone. "Ruby helped me design it," she explained as Lyra examined it with wonder. "The spirals represent our 2 worlds. The stone is from our ship. I salvaged it before the disintegration completed." Lyra touched it reverently. "The last piece of home. The last piece of where we came from," Tala corrected gently. "Home is here now." Their integration into Pine Ridge's secret community had opened doors neither had anticipated. Dr. Allen's network extended beyond the small town, connecting refugees across continents. Some worked in science and technology, subtly advancing human innovation. Others, like an elderly couple from the Cygnus system who ran the local nursery, simply lived quiet lives enriched by both their original culture and their adopted home. During a midsummer gathering at Dr. Allen's farm, they met others like themselves, beings from a dozen worlds who had chosen Earth for various reasons. Political refugees, scientific researchers whose ethical boundaries didn't align with their homeworlds, even tourists whose ships had malfunctioned. "Humans aren't ready for official contact," explained Jor, an engineer from a water world in the Poivsia Tau Ceti system. "But they're remarkable allies one-on-one. More adaptable than most species give them credit for." The gathering felt like something from both worlds. The intellectual exchange valued on Valix combined with the warm communal atmosphere unique to Earth. For the first time, Lyra and Tala felt they belonged fully to a community that understood all aspects of their existence. Later that night, walking home under meteor showers that the locals had gathered to watch, Tala broached a subject they'd been circling for months. "Ruby mentioned there's a 2-bedroom cottage for rent near the bookshop," she said casually. "I thought, perhaps we could look at it tomorrow." The implication was clear. Their separate bedrooms in the apartment had become a formality months ago, but taking this step, creating a true home together, felt momentous. "Are you proposing we establish a permanent dwelling arrangement?" Lyra asked, deliberately using formal Valixian phrasing to mask her emotion. Tala laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet street. "Yes, you impossible woman. I'm asking you to move in with me. Properly, as a couple. The concept of couple had no direct translation in their native language. The closest approximation was reproductive pairing, clinical and temporary. What they had discovered on Earth was something their language had never needed to name, a partnership of equals based on choice and emotional connection. The cottage was perfect. Small but surrounded by gardens, with large windows that filled the rooms with light. Maggie helped them negotiate the lease, and Ruby's extended family arrived with furniture, kitchenware, and houseplants to make it a home. Housewarming tradition, Ruby explained, hanging a dream catcher in their bedroom window. Keeps the bad dreams away. As summer faded to autumn, completing their first full cycle of Earth seasons, they established new routines. Lyra had begun assistant teaching at the local school, discovering a talent for helping children understand mathematics and science. Tala continued at the bookshop, but had also started writing. Stories that blended elements of Earth and Valix, disguised as science fiction. Their modified bodies had settled completely, the blend of human and Valixian aspects becoming so natural they rarely thought about the distinction anymore. Occasionally, in private moments, they would let their skin flicker back to its original colors, a reminder of where they had begun, how far they had traveled. "Do you think," Tala asked one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, "that others on Valix feel the way we do? About each other? About freedom?" Lyra considered this. "We can't be the only ones. Our study groups were growing when we were arrested. Ideas. They're hard to contain once released. The thought that their exile might have sparked something larger back home was both thrilling and sobering. Their personal journey had transformed them, but perhaps it was also part of a greater change, a bridge between worlds that might someday be crossed in both directions." As twilight deepened around their cottage, Lyra felt profound gratitude for the punishment that had become their greatest gift. 2 years after their arrival on Earth, Pine Ridge hosted a rare event, a gathering of representatives from the network of refugee communities scattered across the globe. Dr. Allen's farm became a temporary embassy for beings from dozens of worlds, all living secretly among humans, all with stories that echoed Lyra and Tala's in various ways. "We've been monitoring transmissions from your sector," an emissary from the Arcturus system told them during a private conversation. His human appearance was flawless, maintained by technology far more advanced than their own stabilizers. "There are interesting developments on Valix." He showed them data streams, carefully intercepted and decoded, reports of unrest among the youth castes, questions being raised about the rigid hierarchy that had defined their society for millennia. The study groups Lyra and Tala had started had not only continued, but multiplied underground. "They call themselves the Exiled's Children," the emissary explained. "Your names are never mentioned. The elders erased all records. But everyone knows who inspired them." The knowledge left them both shaken. They had made peace with their exile, had built new lives that fulfilled them in ways Valix never could. But to think that their small acts of rebellion had sparked something larger, that somewhere across the stars, others were questioning the truths they'd once accepted without thought. "Should we try to contact them?" Tala wondered aloud after the emissary left. "Send a message?" Lyra considered this carefully. "Perhaps that's not our role anymore. We planted seeds. Others must tend the garden now." Their life on Earth had reached a comfortable rhythm. The cottage had become truly theirs, filled with books and mementos and the small treasures of daily existence. Their circle of friends, both human and non-human, had expanded. They'd traveled beyond Pine Ridge, discovering that Earth was even more varied and beautiful than their limited knowledge had suggested. Most preciously, their relationship had deepened in ways that still amazed them. The telepathic bond that had emerged after their stabilization had grown stronger, allowing them to share not just emotions, but occasional thoughts and memories. In quiet moments, they could experience each other's perspective, a level of intimacy, unimaginable on Valix, yet perfectly natural in their new existence. One autumn morning, as mist rose from the lake where they'd contemplated their future years before, Ruby found them holding hands on the shore. "Planning the wedding?" she teased, dropping beside them with her characteristic lack of ceremony. Tala laughed. "Another human custom we haven't quite figured out." But the idea lingered. Marriage, a formal declaration of partnership, held an appeal neither had anticipated. Their Valixian heritage viewed such ceremonies as unnecessary. The practical arrangements of cohabitation required no ritual affirmation. But the human part of them, growing stronger with each passing year, recognized the power of public commitment. The following spring, beneath flowering cherry trees, they exchanged vows in a ceremony that blended Earth traditions with subtle elements of their homeworld. Dr. Allen gave Lyra away. Maggie, moved beyond her usual gruffness, read a passage from her favorite Earth poet. Ruby served as both officiant and witness. Their only regret was that no one from Valix could witness what they had become, how their punishment had transformed into the greatest gift imaginable. As guests departed and twilight fell, they stood together in their garden, faces turned toward the stars. Somewhere among those distant points of light was Valix, continuing without them. "The elders thought they were teaching us humility," Lyra said softly. "Instead, they taught us about possibility." Tala nodded, her hand finding Lyra's with the familiarity of long practice. "They sent us away, because they feared we would contaminate Valix with dangerous ideas. But they underestimated the power of what we would discover here." Earth had changed them profoundly, opening them to experiences their society had deemed unnecessary or dangerous: love, individual choice, the messy brilliance of emotional connection. Yet they remained Valixian too, carrying within them the analytical minds and cultural heritage of their birth world. They were bridges between species, between philosophies, between ways of being. Their exile had created something entirely new, not human, not Valixian, but a synthesis that honored both while transcending their limitations. "Do you think," Tala asked, "they'll ever understand what they gave us when they meant to punish us?" Lyra considered this as night fully claimed the sky, revealing stars that had once seemed alien, but now felt like old friends. "Perhaps someday. Change comes slowly, but it comes." Above them, a shooting star traced a brief, brilliant path across the darkness, a reminder that even in the vast emptiness of space, unexpected beauty could emerge. Just as their punishment had created something the elders could never have anticipated, two aliens who found home in exile and love on a planet they were never meant to embrace. Humanity, with all its flaws and wonders, had given them what Valix could not: the freedom to discover who they truly were, together. And in that discovery lay a power greater than any their homeworld had ever wielded. "Come," Tala said finally, tugging gently at Lyra's hand. "Let's go home." And together, under an Earth sky now as familiar as their own hearts, they did.